In an inverse relation, basically what's happening is you're switching the x and the y values. So the domain of the inverse is going to be the range from the original relation. The range of the inverse is going to be the domain of the original relation. So whatever function you start with, its domain will become the range of its inverse, and its range will become the domain of the inverse. Basically what this means is we are switching x and y. X and y are inverting. They are changing places. So here's an original relation that has 5 points. I would like to know what are the coordinates of the inverse relation. So the original point is -4, 2. What would be the coordinating point on the inverse? 2, -4. -2, 1 on the inverse would be 1, -2. 0, 0 would be 0, 0. 2, 1 would be 1, 2, and 4, 2 would be 2, 4. So notice, all that's happening is we are switching the x's and the y's. The steps for finding the equation of an inverse relation. If I ask you, here's this equation, y equals 2x minus 4, we need to find the inverse. We need to find the equation that switches the x and the y's. So your first step is to switch the x and the y. This is sometimes called inverting the equation. Step 2, then, is to solve for y. Get y on a side by itself. So in our first example, y equals 2x minus 4. First step, switch the x and the y. So make it x equals 2y minus 4. And now we need to use our fancy algebra skills to get y by itself. What should we do first to get y by itself? Add 4. Remember, when you're solving an equation, you're doing PEMDAS backwards. So you basically want to do SADMEP. Have you guys ever heard that before? When you're solving an equation, do PEMDAS backwards, which is SADMEP. So deal with any subtraction or addition first, then deal with any multiplication or division, then deal with any exponents, then deal with parentheses. When you're solving an equation, you are undoing math, so you're using PEMDAS backwards. Next, we would divide both sides by 2. So our final equation would be x plus 4 all over 2 equals y. That is the inverse of the original function y equals 2x minus 4. In number 3, our first step is to switch x and y. So x equals 2/3 y minus 7. What should we do first in the process of solving this equation for y? Add 7. Always subtract or add first, then divide or multiply, then deal with exponents, then deal with parentheses. So we have x plus 7 equals 2/3 y. Now, some people have told me, okay, so divide by 2/3. But is dividing by a fraction really all that simple? No. Instead of dividing by a fraction, we multiply by the reciprocal. So our final answer is 3/2 times the quantity x plus 7 equals y. And I'm fine with you not simplifying that and just leaving that exactly like that. If we have two functions f and g are inverses of each other, provided that f of g of x equals x. these two functions need to undo each other. Number 4 says, verify that f and g are inverse functions. To verify that they are inverse functions, we do f of g of x. That means we take one of them, in this case the g of x function, and we are going to put the g of x function inside the x of the other function. So 1/3, instead of this x, we are going to put all of 3x plus 3. And then we have the -1 after it. All right, let's distribute that 1/3. What is 1/3 times 3? 1. So this is x plus 1 minus 1. What is x plus 1 minus 1? X. If f of g of x results in simply x, that means that anything that was done to x by one function was undone by the other function, which means that they are inverses of each other.